and the omnibus. So I was forced into the Archers when I was a child. And look, it's come back to bite me later on. I'm awash with this stuff.
The Archers is the world's longest-running radio show, with more than 15,000 episodes broadcast. Despite being a rural flavour show, The Archers is recorded in the heart of the UK's second-largest city.
Okay, let's get into this. So picture this. You're just settling into a familiar spot, maybe the local pub.
Yeah.
You hear all those everyday sounds, right? Someone ordering a stout, someone else wants a gin and tonic.
Mm-hmm. Usual background noise.
Exactly. And there's this low hum of conversation, people talking about community stuff, maybe debating opening the farm this year, or what movie's playing at the drive-in.
Right. It feels really grounded, completely normal.
Totally. Part of that community rhythm.
And the audio source we're looking at, it gives us these perfect little snippets that really build that atmosphere.
Yeah, you actually hear bits of that debate about the open farms idea.
You do. Some concern that it's a risky thing, maybe referencing things that happened before.
But balanced against that feeling of, well, we can't just shut everything down. People need to live our lives.
Right. There's talk of maybe increased security, relying on local people to sort of help keep an eye on things.
It's that classic contrast, isn't it? Wanting normal life, but still having these worries lingering.
Definitely.
And then, smack bang in the middle of this everyday scene, something shifts. You hear a woman come up to the bar.
In the audio notes, she seems, well, a bit odd.
Yeah, and she asks this very specific question.
Very specific. She asks if someone named Angela works there, or she can ask for Angela.
And the person behind the bar we hear, it's someone, Dave, who isn't regular staff, just helping out that night.
Right.
He just gives the straightforward answer, something like, I'm sorry, there's no one who works here called Angela.
And what's really striking right then in the audio is how the woman reacts to that simple factual answer.
Yeah, what happens?
We're told she just ran away quickly.
Oh, okay.
It's just a moment that feels off. It doesn't quite fit the casual pub setting, you know. It hints that something else is going on here, more than just a mistake about who works there.
And that's exactly what this deep dive is all about, looking into these audio excerpts. We've got this collection of snippets. It's like being dropped into these conversations happening over one evening in this community. And our mission here is to listen really closely, pull out the key moments, try to understand the dynamics between the people we're hearing.
Yeah, and really unpack this specific situation that unfolds around this ask for Angela moment.
What does it mean? And what does the whole story tell us about the layers beneath the surface in this slice of life?
It's like piecing together a narrative puzzle, but using only the dialogue and the descriptions the audio gives us.
Okay, so let's maybe rewind just a tiny bit. Let's properly set the scene as the audio presents it.
Okay, definitely a pub. You hear the drinks orders, talk about pulling pints. People are clearly working behind the bar.
And the background noise is just the community itself. Like you said, the farm debate, but also lighter stuff.
Yeah, someone mentions catching Casablanca again at the drive-in at Dreamless Manor.
Right, so it paints this picture of a place with its own routines, its own characters.
And into this scene comes Lillian. We hear she was expected earlier, but she arrives late.
And the audio makes it pretty clear she's not quite herself.
No, she's described as seeming low, even totally blank. It's not fully present.
And the source tells us why, doesn't leave us guessing. It explicitly says her mother has just died.
Yeah. And Lillian herself says she feels, better off keeping busy rather than being home alone staring at the walls because Justin is out.
Understandable. And you hear others are concerned about her.
So she's navigating this really significant personal grief, trying to just be in a public space.
Yeah.
And maybe in that context with staff maybe busy or preoccupied.
That's when Dave, who isn't regular staff, offers to help out behind the bar.
Seems like just a nice community thing to do.
Yeah, a helpful gesture. But as we heard, it becomes pretty significant very quickly.
Which brings us right back to that interaction, the strange one with the woman asking about Angela.
Right. At that point in the audio, it just hangs there as this kind of puzzling, maybe slightly awkward moment.
Someone asking for an employee who doesn't exist and then just running off. Strange.
But the audio deliberately brings us back to her through Lillian's eyes.
Exactly. Yeah. Lillian spots her later, sitting by a window table.
And this is where the source really reveals what's going on. Lillian doesn't just see her sitting there.
No, she sees her interacting with the man she's with, who we later learn is called Darren.
And what does the audio say Lillian witnessed?
It's pretty stark, actually. Lillian says explicitly she saw him being really aggressive towards her,
Aggressive how?
leaning in close, actually hissing at her to shut up.
Wow.
And Lillian's conclusion, just based on seeing the woman's face, her reaction is simple. She looks terrified.
Okay, that's a huge turning point. Seeing the woman's terror, seeing the man's aggression after having heard that weird question at the bar earlier. So what does Lillian realize then, according to the audio?
She puts the two things together. Click. She understands the woman wasn't asking for an employee named Angela. It was a code.
Code.
Yeah. The source explains the Ask for Angela scheme. It says it's a scheme for people feeling vulnerable.
Okay.
And asking for Angela means the venue staff are supposed to be trained to help.
Ah, right. So the woman was trying to signal she was in distress, that she needed help from someone trained.
Exactly. And her first attempt failed because the person she asked, Dave, didn't recognize the code. He wasn't trained.
And Lillian's reaction in the audio when she figures this out, it really shows how serious that missed signal was.
Oh, yeah. You hear her immediate frustration. She even calls Dave an idiot at first.
Ooh.
But then really quickly, she sort of pivots. She starts taking responsibility herself, saying it was her fault for letting him help without checking if he knew about the scheme.
Especially since, as the audio notes, apparently no one had ever actually used the Ask for Angela code there before.
Right. It just highlights how a lack of awareness, even if it's unintentional, can have really serious consequences when someone is vulnerable like that.
Absolutely. The frustration is palpable, realizing the safety net just failed when someone really needed it.
But the audio doesn't get stuck on blaming Dave. It moves pretty fast to action.
Okay, so what happens?
Well, the characters who are now aware, Lillian and some others, they quickly agree. We need to do something. The urgency is really clear in the dialogue.
And the plan they come up with, how's that described?
It's very focused, very pragmatic. It's all about helping the woman Naomi to get away from him, if that's what she wants.
But acknowledging it needs careful handling.
Definitely needs careful handling.
Yeah.
And this is where Lillian, despite dealing with her own grief, she just completely takes control.
How does the audio describe that?
It's vivid. It says, enter Auntie Lillian, stage left. Like she's stepping onto a stage to manage the scene.
Ah, okay.
She takes charge of talking directly to the woman, Naomi.
And she creates this instant diversion, right? Pretending she knows her.
Exactly. Walks right up, big smile. Hello, darling. I didn't know you were dropping in today. Offers her coffee.
Brilliant. All designed to look totally normal to the aggressive guy, Darren. But signal, I'm here to help, to Naomi.
And it works. You hear Naomi confirm her sister is on her way and will call when she arrives.
So the escape plan gets coordinated fast.
Super fast. The sister will come to the fire exit to pick Naomi up.
And other people get roles, too.
Yeah, Kenton and David are tasked with basically making sure Darren, they use a less than flattering nickname for him, What's his face, stays put.
Okay. Keep him distracted.
While Naomi slips out and gets into the car with her sister, the absolute priority is clear. Get her out safely.
That part of the audio, it really shows the community just clicking into action in a crisis.
Totally. Using their knowledge of the place, of each other, to pull off this rapid, discreet rescue.
So once Naomi is safe, does the audio give us her side of the story? What happened with Darren?
Yes, it does.
Huh.
When she's away from him, she explains, she met him through a friend.
Okay.
A friend who worked with him and described him as a really nice guy.
Ah, the classic setup. And was he nice at first?
She confirms that, yeah, he was charming and lovely initially. It didn't start badly at all.
So what was the turning point? What set him off?
According to Naomi, it was incredibly simple. It was when she told him she didn't want to see him again.
That's it. Just ending it.
That's it. She explained she had a nice enough time, but just realized it wasn't going to work long term. They had totally different interests, circles.
Did she give an example?
Yeah, she mentions him talking quite a long time about Bitcoin.
Oh, dear. Okay, so a very normal, mundane reason for incompatibility.
Exactly. And his reaction to this gentle letdown, that's where the charm just vanished.
What did he do?
Naomi describes him saying he couldn't believe she'd wasted his time, complaining that he'd missed his five-a-side for this.
Seriously? Wow. Entitled mutt.
Right. And apparently she laughed at first, thinking he must be joking.
Which probably didn't help.
It escalated things. He got really angry, kept telling me to shut up, and demanded, how dare I laugh at him?
Okay, so it went from entitled grumbling straight to verbal abuse.
Fast. She says he got really nasty. Started telling her she wasn't all that, and that she was actually Lucky that he'd agreed to a date with me in the first place.
Erg.
Horrible.
It's that pattern, isn't it? Charm as a mask and the aggression underneath surface as a point. Things don't go exactly his way.
So Naomi's feeling scared at this point.
Definitely. She says she thought about just leaving, but she was genuinely worried he'd follow me, and she'd be stuck waiting outside for a taxi, vulnerable.
Makes sense.
And it was then, feeling trapped and scared, that she remembered seeing the Angela posters in the toilets.
Ah, so just seeing a poster earlier became her lifeline when things went bad.
Exactly. And you hear the immense relief in her voice when she talks about the intervention. She calls Lillian a real-life fairy godmother, says she doesn't know what she would have done without them.
Her story really adds that crucial perspective, showing how fast a normal date can turn terrifying.
And it underlines how potentially life-saving these schemes like Ask for Angela can be, when they actually work.
Which brings us to the aftermath then. How did the characters process all this in the audio?
Well, first, there's just this sense of collective exhale, like, phew, it was quite a night. Someone definitely says they need a drink, specifically brandy.
I bet.
But that relief is definitely mixed with lingering concern. They're still worried that Darren might try something, or even follow Naomi home.
Yeah, that fear doesn't just vanish.
Though some characters kind of suggest he probably knew he'd been caught out, and might just, move on to lining up his next target, which is also a chilling thought.
Grim. And do they talk again about that initial failure, Dave not knowing the code?
They do circle back to it. Lillian again expresses disappointment, but she really firmly redirects the blame away from Dave and onto herself. She says, it's not Dave's fault, it's mine for not making sure he was trained.
Taking responsibility.
Yeah. And that moment in the audio, it really hammers home that these schemes aren't just about putting up posters. They need active, consistent staff training and awareness.
The fact that no one's ever asked for Angela before is maybe context, but it also suggests you can't just wait for it to happen. You need refreshers.
Yeah.
Exactly. Proactive training.
And they all seem to recognize how close they came to a much worse outcome.
Oh, yeah. They acknowledge it was a close call, that things might have ended quite differently if Lillian hadn't happened to see that aggressive interaction and put two and two together.
But underneath the relief about Naomi being safe, the audio captures something deeper in Lillian's reaction.
It does. She admits she's not really... Okay, you hear this real anger surface.
Anger about what specifically?
Anger that men like him get away with this, and the frustration that women constantly have to be prepared for their date to be an aggressive bully or worse.
That lack of consequence for Darren really seems to sting.
It's palpable. They touch on the impulse some might have had to, throw him out of the pub.
Yeah, confront him directly.
But they contrast that with the strategy they actually chose, which prioritized getting Naomi out safely and discreetly. They had to remove her from the situation and also consider the other customers.
Practicality.
But it leaves that difficult feeling, doesn't it? Even though they helped Naomi, he basically just walks away scot-free from creating that whole terrifying situation.
Yeah. And Lillian's final thoughts in the source, they're quite heavy.
They are. Despite the successful rescue, she voices this feeling that ultimately there's nothing you can do, nothing anyone can do about the bigger picture, about men like Darren and the danger women face.
That's bleak.
And then the brief mention of her partner Justin arriving just reinforces everything she's navigating this incident, plus her own grief. It adds another layer to her emotional state.
It's a really powerful end to that whole sequence in the audio. Shows the emotional toll even when things work out okay in the immediate crisis.
Absolutely, the cost of witnessing and intervening.
So, stepping back from the specifics, what does this deep dive into these audio snippets really offer us, the listeners?
Well, I think it forces you to see how easily harmful behavior can just hide in plain sight. It can completely disrupt a normal evening and often go unnoticed unless people are actively looking out.
Yeah, it really highlights how important that vigilance is. Community awareness, just paying attention, trusting your gut if something feels wrong.
And being willing to step in, even if it's in careful, managed ways like Lillian did.
And it makes such a strong case for schemes like Ask for Angela. They are vital tools.
Yeah. Vital, but their effectiveness hinges completely on the people involved being aware and properly trained.
Yeah.
The posters are just step one. The human response is everything.
Definitely. And it also leaves you sitting with those really difficult emotions the characters felt.
Yeah, the relief of helping, sure. But also that simmering anger and frustration. Frustration that this behavior happens, that victims need escape plans for dates, and that often the perpetrators face no immediate consequence.
It really does raise that question, doesn't it? The one the characters themselves seem to grapple with in the audio.
Which is?
Based on this incident, what is the right balance between the immediate need for safe intervention, getting Naomi out quickly, and addressing the broader issue of accountability for this kind of aggressive, abusive behavior?
That's a tough one.
And thinking about the examples and the frustrations we heard in the source, what role can we as individuals or communities realistically play? Not just reacting when a crisis hits, but maybe in proactive ways that might actually prevent or deter this behavior in the first place.
Yeah, that's definitely something to mull over long after the audio stops playing. What can we actually do?
So what are you doing now?
Just getting ready for the next episode. Just moving mics around.
So what do you do?
I do the spot effects on the archers. Any
Are you what we call Foley then?
Kind of. Yep.
Okay. And these are all part of the paraphernalia of production.
Yep. That's the ball bar. That's
this one.
Yep. That's.
Hayley so wanted to be in their own place when their baby came. It's due in 2 months. Not much chance of that now. No. I mean, it would have been a stretch for them financially, mind, but I just wish there was something practical I could do to help them, Caroline.
I think The Archers has had this immense popularity over the years, basically because it has always very accurately reflected the reality of life and living in a rural community at whatever